Hello, my loves. Welcome to my channel. Today, you have found my new series on narcissistic abuse and how we heal from that. And I'm kicking off this series with my own personal story of healing my relationship with my dad, how it's affecting me, how I got better, like all of the things. And this is part of a 4-part series. So if you don't know me already, my name is Manpreet. I'm a trauma transformation coach and mentor. I am a podcaster of an award-winning podcast called Heart's Happiness, and I have quantum leaped in so many areas from love, from business, from a house owner, where my life was completely different because of my relationship with my dad, because of that narcissistic abuse. So I have just so much I want to share with you because there was a time once when I was desperately looking on YouTube for answers of how I could change my life and how I could stop repeating the same patterns and have the same reality. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about that today. So if you haven't already, could you please like and subscribe and hit the bell button so that you can be notified when these very glamorous videos come out. I know they're not the greatest, but I just have so much to share with you. So I just gonna get it out there. I do lots in my podcast every week, and I do a blog as well. So if you want to sign up to my newsletter, you'll find out about all the places you can find my things. But I just have a lot to share about particular topics, which is what I wanted to come onto YouTube and share them with you. So let's talk about me. So I am now on June 2024, I am 42 years of age, but it took me over 37 years to get into a healthy relationship. And the reason was a lot to do with my dad, and not just my relationship, like my romantic relationship, but I feel like I had arrested development from the narcissist abuse that I suffered, right? So my dad actually took his life 16 years ago, which was one of the hardest things that's ever happened to me. But in all honesty, I thought it would be a good thing because he was such a difficult man to live with. He was somebody that I had to walk on eggshells with. I never knew if he would be happy or if he would be sad or what I would have done to upset him. Everything was about his needs, like it is with narcissists. So, like, he's like a giant baby. Everything's about his needs, his emotions. He would deny my reality, deny my feelings, tell me, speak to me like in such a horrible way, tell me I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough. And this was happening to me since I was a little girl. So he actually got worse. So I would say that, like, narcissism, and on the internet we talk loads about narcissists and how they're like these awful people, which they do awful things. So that's absolutely true. But there's a spectrum of narcissism and codependency. So codependence, we people please, we give our power away. And then narcissists are all about themselves. But often we find ourselves in relationships with narcissists, often because of the dynamics of our childhood. So my dad, he progressed more and more into that narcissist behavior, the more and more he wasn't in a good place. Like, he'd lost his parents and he became more and more controlling and abusive. And I don't really remember him being like that so much when I was super young, like a baby, but especially after the age of like 5, when he lost his mum, that's when he started to be more controlling and nastier and really offensive comments. And basically what that means is that if you imagine yourself as a plant, and that means that we are being grown in an environment that is so toxic, from the words I'm hearing every single day, from the way he's speaking to me, the way he's treating me. At the age of 0 to 7, that is when our brains are being formed. And during those years, like I said, he got worse at that age, but there was other things going on in my life. We lived with my granddad, who's an alcoholic. We also, my parents didn't have the best marriage. It was like a complete toxic environment that my brain is being developed in. And I'm learning from a really young age that it's not safe to be me. It's not safe to be seen. It's not safe for me to speak my truth. This man gets really, really angry. If he's tired, if like he's upset, or if he, like, literally like a baby. Like, I'm starting to think like narcissist abuse is a bit like you're a baby. So something dysregulates you, you don't feel great, and then you just want to take it out on everybody else. You want to take out your pain and your suffering onto other people. That's how they get narcissistic supply, right? That's what they talk about. That even as a child, my dad was getting his narcissistic supply from his young children that were terrified. And it was such a chaotic environment, like walking on eggshells, not knowing what he was going to say or who he was going to be. And in my own personal experience, this is different for different people. My dad wasn't this evil man every single day. Sometimes he could be absolutely so loving and so kind. And like I said, more on that codependent spectrum, like thinking about his family or something like that, wanting love. But other times, and majority of the time, he wasn't that nice dad. He was that very Jekyll and Hyde character. And it just meant that I grew up on eggshells. I grew up not feeling safe to be me, to be seen, to speak or anything. And it made me very shy. It made me very reserved. I was a very empathic child, very sensitive. So I learned very young to tune in to him and also my mum as well, how they were feeling and how could I give them what they need so they would be calmer, so I would feel safe in my environment. And that started from such a young age. And I never knew that that's what formed who I became, which I'm going to get into. So it was just this very chaotic environment. There would be alcohol sometimes. My dad wasn't a full-on alcoholic, but he used to drink all of the time, which made his abuse worse. There would be swearing, there would be name calling, there would be dismissing of your emotions. You weren't allowed to be sad, you weren't allowed to make noise, you weren't allowed to be a child, you weren't allowed to play. And he was also incredibly controlling. So he would force me to study all of the time from such a young age. So I was forced to work as opposed to play and be a child. Me and my brother weren't allowed to be loud. We weren't allowed to make mistakes. We weren't allowed to fail. We had to like achieve. And this came in at a very young age. So everything was about what he wanted and needed. He didn't think we were good enough as children. He felt like his unhappiness was because of us, because we weren't good enough kids. And he literally would say that to us. Like he would literally say to us, "You're useless." He would see relatives and tell them, "Oh, my kids are useless." Like this is when we were very little. This is as we got bigger. And there was no amount that we could do or I could do to please this man. And I became like the best people pleaser. So I did the subjects he wanted me to do. I did I behaved the way he wanted me to behave. He didn't want me to have boyfriends. I did all of the things up until teenage years that he wanted me to do to try and tame him, to try and make him happy. And it just, nothing would work. Sometimes maybe I felt like it would work. And he had a very turbulent relationship with my mum. He was very abusive to her, that narcissistic control, that abuse, bullying, like he bullied all of us, like ruining our self-esteem, our self-worth, telling us we were nothing. From my mum, he took like her money, he controlled her, he was like, he raped her on occasions as well. Like there were so many things that he was doing to us individually that would be sort of just taking away who we were. And this carried on for 26 years of my life. And there was times where he was more like the scary dad. And there was times where the loving dad would be more prominent because he would be getting into meditation. He would be trying to resolve what's going on with him. And like I said, I could say that my dad is like the bad man in my story, because he did and said and all of these horrible things to me, especially in my growing up years. But my dad had that done to him as well. So my dad had an abusive dad, my dad that drank lots of alcohol, that came to the UK when he was very, very young, to bring his family over. But he struggled with that, his dad did, and he didn't know how to be a dad. So he would be all about his needs. He would get his wife and daughter to work for him and he'd take their money. And that's kind of what happened with my dad. Like he would want me to earn money and he would keep my money from me. And there was so much control and it was just so unsafe. And honestly, I don't even know what happened those 26 years. I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to get by. I didn't know that it was abuse. I didn't know that it was called narcissistic abuse. I didn't know that I'd been through complex PTSD trauma. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had developmental trauma. I didn't know I had relational trauma. I didn't know that I've actually had trauma from in the womb because my mom was scared from that moment. I didn't know any of those things. All I knew was I'm a really bad daughter. All I knew is that everything is my fault. All I knew is that, there was no making him happy, so it must be me. And that's what abuse does to us, right? It makes us feel disempowered, like a victim, and like we have no way of stopping the beast. And then what happens through those years of abuse, those years of not feeling safe, is we come up with survival things to be able to cope. So some of the things that I did to survive my childhood with him was I would study really hard, get the marks that he wanted me to get, even though he'd never be happy with that. So like overworking, I would numb with like sugar and food, and later that would become alcohol as well. I would like fantasize and like leave my body and disassociate to just cope with everything that was happening. I became super like people pleasing in every relationship. I wasn't authentic in any relationships. I would give my power away to everyone because I was so afraid that I would upset them and then I would have to feel the wrath of them. And, like anger really scared me. So I completely shut off from my own anger and from my own emotions. I was completely cut off from my own needs. Everything was about everybody else's needs. And it was just my personality, to be honest. Oh, Manpreet does things for everybody. Oh, Manpreet's like the greatest bridesmaid. Oh, she's so amazing. She does all of these things. But really, I just wanted to be liked. I just wanted to be loved. I just didn't want people to shout at me. I just wanted to be like connect with people. This isn't even who I really am. I was just this shell of a person who had been surviving her whole entire life. Now, my mum did eventually leave my dad and leave that situation. And sadly, soon afterwards, he did take his life, which is horrible. And I wish that that never happened to him. But I felt like, oh my gosh, my life, well, he's not here. This person that spoke to me like this is no longer a part of my life. So I'm going to be safe now. And this is like, if you're listening to this and maybe you've been in an abusive relationship that sounds like this, but it's not your dad, it's your husband or your boyfriend or somebody else that you know. I've also had relationships with narcissists that are women, that are friends, that are family members, which was the same, which was that it was always about them. They would take things out on me for how they're feeling. They would make me feel very unsafe. They wouldn't respect my boundaries. They didn't really care who I was. They didn't really see me because everything was about them and everything was about their needs. So, like this plays out in so many different relationships when we've grown up with it and it's normal. So even after he had died and after he had gone, and I guess after the abuse had stopped, it didn't matter. It got worse because the abuser lived in my mind. And in all of the actions and all of the behaviors and the things that I was doing. So I was chasing after unavailable men. I would be attracted to men that needed saving. I would be attracted to situations which were abusive, whether they were friendships, whether they were romantic, whether they were colleagues, it wouldn't matter. Like I wasn't doing any of these things consciously, but these things were so normal to me that I just accepted them. And I just was constantly that child that didn't believe she was worthy of more. I was constantly that child that thought that this is normal. I was constantly in that toxic environment where it was like an emotional roller coaster, whether it be in the relationships I found myself in or the relationship I had with myself. So the relationship I had with myself, the way I spoke to myself, the way I treated my body, the way I had a lack of boundaries, the way I would give my energy to everybody else but me. So all of these ways is the way that my dad and that abuse lived on long after he had gone. And my life was an utter mess. So on the outside, you would never know it. I started my healing journey in 2015. It all looked very normal. I had a good job. I worked for a good company. People said I looked put together or whatever. I used to love fashion and going out and socializing and drinking a lot of alcohol and having these weird fantasies with men that would never like be there for me. But inside, I was crumbling. I felt so full of self-hate, so full of self-loathing, no way of stopping it. And I kept looking for the validation, the peace, the love, the care, the belonging outside of me. And every time, wherever I would look, I would find it in a place that would just treat me like my dad did, or even like my mum. So in some later videos, I am going to talk about, like, so, you know, you've got the abuser, but you've got the other parent as well. And my mum was the victim, but then I became her rescuer, and that created a whole dynamic in our relationship. So I'll do a whole set of videos on that. But my story really being that I had to get to a point in my life where I was like, I want to get married. I want to have children. I want to be happy. I don't like my job. I'm rolling around in a crazy amount of debt. I've been in love with people that have no interest in me and given them all of my energy. What is going on? So I had this term the other day in a course I went to, and the man said, you know, we deal with our pain when it gets so bad, we can't ignore it anymore. And it got so bad that I could not ignore it. Like, it was like, I am drinking loads of alcohol, I'm entertaining these awful relationships, I'm in so much debt, I am not happy. What is going on? So that was the point where things started to really, really change. And I picked up my first self-help book, which is Barbara Moore, The Miracle of Self-Love. And by the way, the only reason why I picked that book up was because I thought the man that was in my life was my twin flame. And I'll do some videos on that on another time. But I believed that he was my twin flame, and he might have been. And I had read that the answer to get your twin flame was to love yourself. So that's why I picked up that book. It was actually for a guy. It wasn't actually for myself. But then I started to unravel that, oh my God, I don't actually like or love myself. Like, I loathe myself. I absolutely hate myself. And then I started to go on my self healing journey, my personal development journey. And, you know, I found affirmations, I found out about manifestation. I started to dabble in the world of self-help, which you may be finding, and that's why you found my story. So that's why I wanted to create this video, because I used to look on YouTube, I used to read blogs, I used to go on Instagram, I listened to podcasts to find out what was going on within me. So what had happened through that environment that I had grown up in, that was so unsafe, that was so abusive, I had, in order to survive that environment, I had come up with a number of behaviors to survive it. Numbing with sugar, say, fantasizing about being rescued by a Prince Charming, and then in real life chasing after Prince Charming. So all of those survival behaviors as part of my old self, and that was living in this environment with my dad, she was ruining my life, basically. So what I had to do was help her to heal. So I wanted to be a healthier version of me. I wanted to be somebody that could be in a loving, safe, secure relationship with a man she did not need to chase. I wanted to be in a job that I actually loved, and that, you know, I didn't want to be in loads of debt. I could not stop spending money. Look, seriously, there was a real addiction there. So I wanted this life so much, but I could not stop these patterns of behavior. And I didn't know they were patterns. I just thought they were my personality. I had no boundaries. I didn't feel safe to have boundaries. I felt so terrified of someone being loud, of someone saying their opinion, of someone giving me feedback, of everything. Like, I was just scared of everything, like a little scared deer in the corner. That's how I was living my life. And just finding myself in these situations that were just repeating the same dynamics that I had with my dad, or I had with my mum as part of that toxic situation. So it was not an easy ride. Okay. So I started to pick up the book and started to look into this, and I found how to heal my inner child. I went and had therapy, and did somatic practices, which is all about healing the body of fear. And there was so much I started to unravel, which I now teach in my Heal Your Inner Child program and through the content I create. So I found ways, slowly, to shed those behaviors that kept me in that abusive relationship cycle that kept me in the emotional addiction that I had with my dad, kept me in the emotional roller coaster, kept me trapped in the life that I had with him, and found ways to start to be this new version. So the healthy me, not the traumatized me, the abused me, but the healthy me, she speaks to herself kindly and with love. She invested her money, not in everybody else, but in getting herself the right support. She treats her body with kindness. She doesn't overdrink or overeat. But I just want to say that this is like an onion. So I became more and more aware of the behaviors that I was doing. I would sometimes still be doing it, but I would just be very aware of it. And then it's taken time for those relationships to change and to shed. So there was a huge place where I was releasing all of these different things that I'd been doing, these patterns of behavior. And to be fair, healing is a lifetime journey. So I'm still like finding my dad in my head and unpicking something. But through doing that work, I was able to let go of the toxic relationships in my life where I was repeating patterns, whether it be with family members, whether it be with romantic love, whether it be with friendship, whether it be whoever. I was able to slowly build the confidence to release myself from those relationships, to feel safe enough to express boundaries or to walk away. Like I found the strength to be able to do that. And I found a way to learn how to love myself how I wanted. So I wanted this from my dad. I wanted this from my mum. I wanted to be spoken with kindness and love and appreciated and seen and valued and safe and not afraid that somebody is going to erupt on me. So I started to do that to myself. I started to be the mum and the dad that I needed to be able to have the life that the one that I wanted as a child. I started to give myself that childhood. I started to imagine myself in the past, bringing that version of me to the future. That's that reparenting work that we do as part of all of this. So I started to do that, and I started to feel better. Like the war, not quite over, but I definitely felt so much better. And then I was able to attract a healthy relationship with a man, like to someone who I'm now married to. I was able to break that pattern, who is nothing like the dark parts of my dad. He's probably got like some of the good things about him rather than the dark parts. So I was able to break the patterns, change things, and have a healthy, loving relationship. And I come from an Asian background. So I was like, as far as my family were concerned, they were like, you're too old, you're never going to get married, you're not going to have happiness. But I was able to find that for myself by learning how to love and care for myself the way I wanted first. And then it became my reality. And that's when I sort of started to stumble more and more upon manifestation. And I didn't realize, but I actually quantum leaped in that moment with my husband, because I had these certain type of men around me, and then I had someone so much better, so much healthier, so much more nourishing. And what happened over the years is that I then started to share what I'm sharing with you on this video, how I got better, the healing work that I did, the reparenting the inner child, the working on my nervous system, the somatic practices, and all of the little elements that helped me to feel safer and to value myself. And then things changed, like it became my new career, and I went on to help other people, and it became a way that I can help people around the world and earn money to live my life, and have got an amazing new house and got rid of all of my debts. And like so many amazing things came from me learning to love myself. So the purpose of today's video is just literally to share that story with you about my dad, and how, he still lives within me, because it was programmed in me from such a young age, from 0 to 7. And being able to get the right support, being able to find the right tools, being able to learn how to take care and be that mother and father to myself has completely transformed my life. I have invested in health, that is true, but I also got so much out of videos like this and podcasts like this that got me on that road. And I just really wanted to tell you with this first video of the series that healing is so possible for you, You can so overcome that abuse. Yes, there's elements to it, the mind, the body, the soul, which were attacked by that abuse, but you can change it. And I fully believe that you are capable of that and that you are worthy of that. And it all starts with learning how to love you. And then and making that conscious decision to stop being the abuser to yourself and to build the strength to move people out of your life that do that with you, and having more respect for yourself, not valuing their feelings more than your own, their needs more than your own. And that takes building courage, that takes being in communities. You can be in support groups, in healing circles that are relatively expensive. They're not expensive. Like, you can be in places like that. You can go to like codependency support groups or AA support groups and allow yourself to be in communities where people are doing this work. That has been such a shift for me as well. Getting the right support. We have so many books, we have so many resources out there which are just teaching you how to love yourself. So you could watch this video and be like, okay, she's talked about repairing, she talked about nervous system, she talked about somatic work, she talked about the way we talk to ourselves, mothering ourselves. But don't worry, I'm going to break this down in other videos. I'm going to go do that. So yeah, it's like, when is the pain so bad that you are going to stop hurting yourself? When is the pain? Don't let the pain get so bad that it kills you or that it, ruins your health. Like, make that decision that yes, there was an abuser in your life. You may feel guilt and shame. I felt a lot of guilt and shame that I felt like it was my fault because I was made to believe it was my fault. And if I was better, then he wouldn't be so bad. But that's not true. That's what the narcissist has to believe to be able to carry on with their lives. And that's my dad, very wounded himself. One of the reasons why I bring generational trauma into my work and into my courses was because that helped me to understand why my dad was the way he was, that why he was the abuser was because of the way he'd been treated, and actually it had nothing to do with me. And wherever he is now, that he didn't mean to do all those things. That's the reality I choose to believe, to make peace with what has happened. And that childhood, yes, it delayed my life. Like, I felt so stuck in life and felt like such a failure and felt like I couldn't move forward. I felt so unsafe in so many ways, and it just ruined so many things. But that I was able to change that by changing the relationship with myself and learning how to be there for the parts of me that had been treated so badly, and to be there for her and to love on her, and how much that's changed my life. Because when everything outside of us is a mirror, and all of those unhealthy relationships that I used to be such a magnet for, they just fell away. And the magnet now was attracting healthy, nourishing, different kind of relationships, different kind of love that I've never known in my life. Like, my husband is nothing like the people I grew up with. It's a completely different relationship. And you get to have that too. So I'm so sorry that your parent abused you in that way. They told you lies. They told you that things were your fault. They gaslit you, that you lived in fear, that you were like that plant that didn't get any of her needs met. But you are a grown adult. You are hitting play on that YouTube channel. You are like, listen to my podcast, Heart's Happiness, from the beginning. Come and join my program, Heal Your Inner Child. I'll teach you all the steps. Come and listen to all my free content. And I have blogs. I have, so much to share on how you can do this, because you can do this. You can absolutely change your life. You are so freaking magical. You have so much power within you. The only reason you have all of these limiting beliefs and all of these fears is because somebody else put those into your head, because that is the survival you. But we get to be this new identity of a person that, cares and loves herself. I want you to take a piece of paper and I want to write old self. And I want you to write about the environment that you've been raised in, how unsafe it's been, how you've not felt good enough, how you felt like scarcity, like there's not enough of everything, how you feel like you maybe need to push yourself or achieve, or maybe you feel like you can't do anything. Whatever, write all about it. What are the beliefs, the behaviors, the thinking patterns? How are you speaking to yourself? Write that all on one piece of paper, or one side of the paper. And then your new self, how is it that you wanted to be treated as a child or in that relationship? Like, with love, with care, with understanding, to be seen. Write that all down. Like, what are the actions that this person takes? What is the life that that person takes? And starting to decide every single day to be that person. And then when the patterns come up, like self-abuse in your mind, being addicted to the emotional rush and you're not doing any of these things on purpose, but you taking responsibility for your patterns of your ego, of your survival brain, you getting into your power and going, oh, that's with compassion, with curiosity, like, oh, that's really interesting. I talk to myself like this, like really listening to how you are treating and speaking to yourself and making a decision today that you're going to stop that. You're going to stop that. You're not going to talk to yourself like that anymore. And starting to change the story that's being said in here, which is how you were abused and like the victim story, that you're powerless, that you cannot change this story. That's not true. Okay. I have changed my story. I've watched clients all over around the world change their stories. I get messages from people listening to my podcast worldwide about how my podcast or something just clicked something in their mind and they made a different decision, and you could make a different decision today, or maybe you'll make it next year, consuming a lot of content, whatever. But don't give up on you. Don't let the abuser be right. They didn't mean it. They're just full of trauma. Their pain wasn't about you. If someone else did that to them and they're just taking it out on you. I'm a person that shames, blames, hurts myself. I'm a self-abuser. Other people abuse others. We're all abusive here. So make a decision to not abuse somebody else, to not abuse yourself, and to step into the energy of love and to really be there for your parts that have got hurt along the way. Now, the rest of this series, I'm going to go more into detail about some tools and practices that you can use, but I would do that old self, new self, and just give that a go. And I will see you in the next video.